Om Akhanda Mandalakaram Vyaptam Yena Characharam Tatpadam Darshidam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Ajnana Timirandasya Jananjanam Shalakaya Chakshurumidam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Parabrahm Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So, today we are going to lay the blueprint where Kriya can take you. There's no point in practicing knowing how to drive if you don't know where you want to go. So this is what happens sometimes. People pick up techniques and then practice, they don't know where they are going. I get hundreds of emails every day almost. I did that, I did this. It was very nice. And then it was so nice that I added some cannabis along with it. And then everything went wonky. Now the snake is running out of my mouth. Please, can you help me? So I said, where did you learn all this? Go back to that source and figure out how to handle it. What can I do about it? Those people are unreachable. So when they're unreachable, the garbage is dumped in my can. So we need to know where we are going, right? So I think most of you know that the most important text on the practice and theory of yoga is the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. I think many of you know it. Now, it's also yoga by itself is a darshana, which means it's a way of life. So you see the word darshana? In Indian system of philosophy and psychology and spiritual training, each path is called a darshana. Now when you say darshana, the real meaning of the word darshana is what? Coming face to face, not showing. Coming face to face with something. For instance, in some countries like Nepal, even the namaskar is like darshan. So every system of thought, which are called the, what are they called? Darshanas, 6 darshanas. They are all called darshana, the 6 ways, including that which is by and large 65% atheistic and material and so on. Even those darshanas. And then there is Sankhya, which is in between. And then there is yoga. For instance, in Sankhya, there is no concept of Ishvara as such. Even that is a darshana. It's perhaps one of the oldest darshanas. Then there is Vedanta, which is a darshana, whose supreme reality is not something that you can talk to and say, today I need 3 cups of tea, please help me. An unreachable, unapproachable, all-pervading supreme being. And then there is Yoga Darshana. Now the Yoga Darshana is mostly derived from Sankhya, with some changes. While Sankhya doesn't give much stress to the concept of Ishvara, the deity, Yoga has the distinction, Patanjali has the distinction of saying, Ishvara pranidhanani, it can also be achieved through attention on Ishvara. So there's a little more stress on Ishvara. So Patanjali's Yoga Sutra is the one text which is the most important one in the Yoga Darshanas. There are other texts like the Yoga Pradipika and all the works of the Natha Sampradaya, Goraksha Shataka. Of course, there is a magnum opus of Gorakhnath called the Siddha Siddhanta Paddhati. Don't attempt to read it. So, there are things like Goraksha Shataka, Gharanda Samhita, Shiva Samhita. These are all Nath textbooks. They all form part of Yoga Darshana. So, the Yoga Darshana is one of the most important, which is Patanjali's Yoga Darshana, because it was authored by somebody called Patanjali. Right. So, if you look at the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, many times it is referred to as Ashtanga Yoga. But nowhere in the Yoga Sutras does Patanjali himself refer to it as Ashtanga Yoga. Although it has 8 angas, 8 parts, so popularly people call it Ashtanga Yoga. Many years ago I went to Wisconsin to a yoga training place where they were teaching yoga. It had a beautiful name. It was called the Perfect Knot. K-N-O-T. I asked them, do you know how to unknot yourself? So anyway, so I asked them, they said, what yoga are you practicing? Ashtanga Yoga. I said, who is the founder of Ashtanga Yoga? B.K.S. Iyengar. This. Well, I'm not denying that B.K.S. did a lot of work on Ashtanga Yoga. Patanjali might have turned in his grave if he's still alive. So, anyway, so in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, why are they called sutras? A sutra is an aphorism which needs a commentator to open up, because it's like tightly edited sentence which needs a lot of commentary to understand what it means. Simply if you say, Atha Yoga Anushasanam, everybody knows this is the starting of yoga. But if you say Yoga is Chitta Vritti Nirodha, now this is a sutra. What is Chitta, what is Vritti, what is Nirodha? It has to be explained. So, this is the importance of a sutra. It's everything in capsule form, which needs to be commented. So, the Yoga Sutras have several commentators, starting from Vyasa. So, since it is the classic text on yoga, Yoga Darsana, and since Kriya is also part of the yoga, practice of yoga, I told you yesterday that there must be many Kriyas in yoga. There are many Kriyas in yoga. Even Vastrika, which is breathing in and out, is part of Kriya. It's Kriya. There are many Kriyas, techniques. Now, in the Yoga Darshana, therefore being the classic text, and since Kriya also falls into the category, we need to look at it just as they have looked at the Yoga Sutras, just as Patanjali has promulgated it. So, what are the divisions of the Yoga Sutras? They start with, there are 4 chapters. The first chapter is not practice. This is what I'm trying to say. That's why this whole day we are spending going around, not in circles, but trying to figure out. The first chapter is not called practice. It is called Samadhi Pada. That means, now Samadhi is the state which the yogi is supposed to reach at the end through the practice of the 8 angas. Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana. Now Samadhi actually is not an anga, it is a culmination, Samadhi. So these 8 together are the 8 parts, right? So why would Patanjali start with the last one first? Samadhipada is the first chapter, because you need to know where you're going. Simply if you start practice, it's okay to practice asanas. So, Samadhi pada is the first part. What is Samadhi? Because when the yogi reaches Samadhi, after going through the other parts, he is supposed to reach Kaivalya. And when you say Samadhi, it means Sama, tranquil, quiet, Dhi, thought, intelligence, where your not intellect, where your intelligence becomes quiet and tranquil, is Samadhi. There is no more distraction. It's in its pure form. Such a mind in Samadhi is actually equivalent to Kaivalya. It's equivalent to the Purusha. There is no difference between such a mind and Purusha. Therefore, Kapila, who is the founder of Sankhya, calls a human being who has reached that state also as Ishvara. So anyway, so this is the first part. So we need to look at that first before going to the second part. What is the second part of the Yoga Sutras? Sadhana pada. The practice of sadhana. What happens is, either in our eagerness to learn or in the teacher's eagerness to teach, lest you go off to somebody else, the first part that is taught is sadhana pada. Practice. Everybody wants some practice. If I go on like this for 2 days, they'll say, what's going on? This theory, let's get into practice. So where are we going in this practice? We need to set the goals, we need to know where we are going, right? So, Samadhi pada, Sadhana pada, Vibhuti pada, last comes Kaivalya pada. Now what is Vibhuti pada? If a yogi continues to practice his sadhana after knowing where he is heading and touches or goes close to Samadhi at least, since his mind has no distractions and is very quiet, it gathers tremendous energy because no energy is dissipated, and therefore the yogi develops certain extraordinary capacities. These capacities are called vibhuti. Vibhuti is not ashes. Vibhuti means the extraordinary. Vibhuti. So, and then comes the warning that this is not the most important thing, the Vibhuti pada, because you might get stuck out there. Tomorrow if I start laying my hands on him, now your back pain is gone, now this pain is gone. Nobody wants anything to do with Kaivalya, that's all. It's over, your journey is finished. Vibhuti is over, 3 chapters. So, Vibhuti pada is a state which one needs to transcend. So what is the last? Samadhi pada, the culmination. So we will follow this procedure. Whether you get vibhutis or fly out of the door, I don't know. But we will follow this procedure. So we'll start with a blueprint, a kind of a Google map of where we are going. For this, I would suggest that we bring in ancient teachings on this subject, on consciousness, on what we are, where are we going, what is the essence of our consciousness. Is it the same with the universal consciousness? And this, you need to go back to the Upanishad. When I say go back to the Upanishads, it's very important because they are the source of all the teachings. In fact, even if you look at any of the texts on yoga darshana, leave alone Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, there are many other texts on the practice of yoga. The text of the Natha Sampradaya, there is also the text called the Yoga Pradipika. Some people call it Hatha Yoga Pradipika. I am not so happy with that term, introducing this term. There's no such hatha, not hatha, and all that. Okay? Yoga Pradipika. Incidentally, that was written by Swatma Rama, who was also from the Natha Sampradaya. I'm not saying because of the tradition, I'm not boasting, but so let's first look at what is an Upanishad. Oh, I was saying, even if you study the science of yoga and the philosophy of yoga, the first and the earliest reference you find in India, at least, which is very ancient, are the Upanishads. In fact, there are over 22 Upanishads which are specifically called the Yoga Upanishads. And the Yoga Upanishads are not new. Most of them are from the Krishna Yajurveda. Yajurveda is the second Veda. Right? It's pretty old. Even things like the practice of Soham, Hamsa, they're all referred to already in the Krishna Yajurveda and taken into the Yoga Upanishads. In fact, there is an Yoga Upanishad called Hamsa Upanishad. Mandala Brahmana Upanishad. There are many. Yoga Bindu Upanishad. These are the ones that deal specifically. What you find in later books, it already occurs in these Upanishads. They have been modified, improved and so on later. I agree with that, but yes. So what is an Upanishad? First of all, let me tell you that when you say Vedanta, it actually means the study of the Upanishads. It's called Vedanta because each Veda, you know, at least some of you know, that there are Vyasa compiled the Vedas into 4 parts. Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, that one, 4 parts. And at the end of each Veda, last part, what occurs is called the Upanishad. Therefore, it is called Vedanta because it appears at the end of the Vedas, Anta, end of the Vedas. Right? So, this is Vedanta. Now, each Veda has some Upanishads attached. But therefore, the Upanishads are also Veda. Because they're part of the Vedas, the last part of the Vedas. If you look at the Vedas, the first part is called the Samhita. Samhita are the hymns. The Gayatri Mantra is a very important part of the Rig Veda Samhita. And each of these Samhitas, whatever is said there, has a rishi who taught this. Like the Gayatri, who is the rishi? Vishwamitra. Same way. Now, this is the Samhita portion. Then comes a portion which is also Vedas called the Brahmanas. The Brahmanas are those portions of the Vedas that deal with the ceremonial aspect. Everybody needs a ceremony, right? Even the whole of our life is a ceremony, kind of ritual. Early morning we get up and say good morning. It may be a terrible morning, but we say good morning. It's a ritual. We smile and say how are you and we really don't want to know. It's a ritual. So all these are rituals. So in the same way, the Brahmanas are the rituals, which means how to understand and use in daily life what has been written in the Vedas. How to keep your health good, how to keep your energies fresh, how to be kind, and so on and so forth. What is the meaning of sacrifice? Ashwamedha doesn't mean horses are sacrificed. No. So these are the Brahmanas. And then the next portion of the Vedas is called the Aranyaka. The word for the forest is aranya in Sanskrit, aranya. That's why when I came here and saw this forest, I thought, let's get a place here, aranya. So, these were those parts of the Vedas which were taught in the wisdom schools that were located in the forests, where the rishis taught. They are also therefore called rahasya, secret, because there were not so many people coming to the rishis, even those days. One fellow who thought he's really serious would approach the rishi with fuel in hand. This is the expression used, samvit pani, fuel in hand, which means go to learn before all your fuel is exhausted. When you're still young, carry your fuel. Afterward, there is no fuel to expend, right? So, they went there and they sought out the teacher who had no Google map, and they sat with the teacher and the teacher talked to the student. No microphone, personally, person to person, impossible these days. This is the rahasya, therefore secret. It's also called rahasya because it gives you what was taught in the Aranyak, which are called Aranyakas, teach you about the inner aspects or inner secrets of the Vedic mantras, what they mean. And if you look, you'll see that some of the Aranyakas have also been designated as Upanishads. That is the last portion. Now, therefore, what has been designated as Upanishad is the essence of all these three. It is the essence of Vedanta. Now, there are 11 principal Upanishads and any number of other Upanishads. Lots. There are some later, some early. But when you say principal Upanishads, the 11 Upanishads that came first, the earliest. They're principal also because they have been commented upon by all the major teachers in the ancient India, starting with Shankara. It seems there have been other interpreters because Shankara sometimes refers to somebody without giving the name and said, this is what was said, but I think it is like this. Of course, we know that there were commentators on the Upanishads before Shankara because Gaudapada, who was Shankara's teacher's teacher, grand teacher, was the first person to write a commentary on the Mandukya Upanishad. Supposed to have sat in Badri somewhere and written a commentary on the Mandukya Upanishad, on which Shankara has written a karika that runs into several thousand, 100 pages, and others have commented. Funny thing is the Upanishad has only 12 verses. This is the Mandukya. So it's a principal Upanishad. So we are going to examine what an Upanishad means first, before we go into one Upanishad. I want to pick up one and look at it and see what the blueprint is. What are we looking for? So, it's actually a combination of 3 syllables. Upa, Ni, and Shad. Now, Upa means to move closer, close, not shut, but close, to move close. Upavasa, to move closer to the abode of the Lord. It's not just fasting, okay? So, upa means to move closer to that which is not ordinary, beyond the ordinary. Why move closer? Because when you find it, suppose, you are no longer there, there's only that. So the best you can say is move closer. It's like moving closer to the sun. You burnt. you're no more there. It's only the sun. Yeah? Or like Ramakrishna Paramahamsa used to say, that a salt doll went to find out how deep the ocean was. Salt doll. Finding out, fathoming the depth of an ocean. What happens to the salt doll? There's only the ocean. So the nearest the Upanishad can go to is to say, close, go closer. That is one meaning of upa, to move closer. It also means, much of the essence of the Upanishad is taught in close quarters. It's not a mass thing that can be done. And when I say close quarters, it means, when you say move closer, it also means, suppose the frequency or the wavelength of your mind, obviously is different. Each person has their own wavelength. I have my own. When one of you's wavelength becomes almost similar to my wavelength, then without a word, the understanding happens. You know what I mean? This is possible only when the minds move closer. It's not just physical closeness, it's the mind. So both are in the same frequency. What is happening here happens here. Dangerous thing to say, because people say Shaktipat, oh, you touch and you get. No, it's not like that. The mind, touching and somebody shivering can be easily done. Because if I ask you to put on an act, and when I touch you, you start shivering, everybody will start shivering. So, no solution. So anyway, so upa, then shad. Did I miss something? We'll think of the knees afterwards. Let's think of shad first, okay? I'm keeping it at the end for a purpose. Now, shad. Shad simply in Sanskrit means sit. Sit down. Which means when I sit down, I know that my mind is not distracted, I'm not running away, everything is settled. The mind has to sit down, not only the body. Shad. Now the great commentator on the Upanishads, Adi Shankara, has another meaning for shad. And you can't say anything because he was one of the greatest scholars in the language. So he said shad also means to churn. Churn, C-H-U-R-N. To put things upside down. Instead of a normal way of learning. Like, how is the normal way of learning? It's linear. Knowledge is there. I am here and I am reaching out. Something is there and I am here and I am linear. Now what happens if what I am seeking, is everywhere? How do I reach out? Yeah. If it's there, yeah, I can reach out. Suppose it is here and everywhere, how is it possible for me to reach? No. When all reaching out stops, then perhaps it's in its original state. Now this is out of the box thinking, right? Shankara said shad also means that, putting things upside down, churning. Turning your thinking in a different way. Like nowadays they say, what is that? I'm not thinking of one thing at a time, but many things at the same time. Fuzzy logic, something like that. So Shankara said that it's not just the linear thing, it's everywhere. Therefore, you need to look, when you stop looking, it is there. Not in prematurely stop looking. All this nonsense. Then what do you want to do? Go to the bar? No, I'm not talking about that. So, this is Shad. The most important thing to note that if it has to be understood, then the mind certainly has to sit down. Then the knee, which we left behind. Knee is a Sanskrit word which indicates down. The Hindi word niche comes from that. Knee. It means the understanding that the student and the teacher, even though physically and other ways they look equal and same, even if they sit down, if I'm sitting down with you, actually the student has to start with the understanding that I don't know. If I say I know, then there is no way to understand. The attitude of receiving, which is to be from a lower part, even physically, you cannot pour anything onto a vessel which is kept this way. It has to be here, and it has to have space. It has to be empty. That attitude and the link, relationship between the teacher and the taught is represented by knee. In fact, the Upanishad makes a very confounding statement. It says, he who knows, knows not, and he who knows not, knows. Is that a tongue twister, or is there something to it? So, which means set apart everything, because Upanishad is also part of Shruti. Shruti means that which is heard, Shrotra, not that which is studied and memorized, deliberated upon when we go back in the night. It's something to be heard and instantaneously registered. And for that kind of thing, the mind has to be open. It has to put aside all that one has gathered and be open. There should be space. If there is no space, where will we put it? If we put it, it will come out. Right? This is knee. So if we combine all these three, then we have the Upanishadic learning, even if you are not learning the Upanishad. I mean, literally. Might be sitting outside under the tree and talking about the birds. You still have an Upanishadic link if the mind is open, ready to receive, and has sat down quietly. In fact, a flight of a bird can actually give you glimpses of eternity. I don't know whether you think of this. We don't want, because we are always with our laptops and computers. We don't see the birds nowadays, or the hills, or the trees, or the wind, no? Which is why this was taught in the forest, so that everybody looked around. Now, though, if there is Wi-Fi even in the forest, so this is to open the internal antennae for the real Wi-Fi. So you'll have to keep shut that for some time. So this is the Upanishad. So today, I want to deal with that Upanishad which I mentioned to you, which is one of the principal Upanishads, and which has only 12 slokas, and thousands of pages have been written on it. Commentaries have been written on it. So what does this Upanishad deal with? It deals with a common factor for all human beings, which is consciousness. The Mandukya Upanishad does not say do this or do that or don't do this or don't do that. It says let's examine the different states of consciousness through which all human beings pass through, which is common to all except one, which is not so common to most people, but the rest. Now, what you should also note is that this Upanishad starts with a definition of the most important sound mantra, called the pranava, in the Vedic teachings, which is Om. So it starts by wanting to define the meaning of Om. Now, generally Om has been defined as the first sound A. The A being creation or the movement of life, and U is the preservation of that which has been created or manifested. Manifested is a better word, because according to the Vedas, nothing is created. Everything manifests, then goes back and comes back again in a different form. It's a cyclical occurrence that happens. Then the ma sound, a, u, ma, om. The ma sound represents the end of what has manifested. Because even when you say Om, produce any new word, you need to open your mouth again. New cycle starts. So that ma, is a representation of end of what has been manifested. So creation, manifestation, continuing the manifestation and ending the manifestation together form. This is the normal explanation given to Om. However, the Mandukya Upanishad gives a different interpretation for Om. The Mandukya says, A, the first letter A, represents the waking state of consciousness which is common to all of us, all human beings. You know what is waking? We don't know much, but we know that we are in the waking state, I hope. So, the waking state, when you wake up in the morning, open your eyes and say, I exist, therefore the world exists. This is the waking state. It's common to all. Although Shankara says that we are all deeply asleep, we need to wake up. But generally, yes, we all know what it's called. The A is called Jagrita, the waking state. Then, the U is the dream state, Swapnavastha, which again is common to all human beings. The dream state, night dreaming, and of course daydreaming. We are referring to the night dreaming, okay? The dreams that we have at night is common to all of us. Dreams may be different. Now the waking state, yes, needs examination, but the dream state requires a little more close examination because it's a very peculiar state. It's a state in which you believe everything is happening, but when you wake up, it's not there. Yes. You have such beautiful dreams that you're in a lovely, when you wake up, where am I? Sitting in Manhattan in the busiest town. Or I dream that there's a tiger chasing me and I'm running for my life. Then I wake up and there is no tiger, but it was so real that I still look to see if it's there. And I'm still perspiring. My blood pressure has gone up. The tiger was there, but now it doesn't exist. This is a state worth examining, right? That if there is a state, the only difference between waking state and... Now you say we are in the waking state. Who knows? Somebody might wake you up from this long sleep and you say, oh my God, what a long dream. No, you won't believe it now, of course. Because in the dream, if somebody comes and says, you're dreaming, you'll say, shut up. Needs examination. I'm not saying both are same, please. How relative they are, that's what we need to look at. The difference, of course, the main difference between the dream, Swapnavastha, it's also called Tejasa, because even though we see a dream with closed eyes, it's illumined inside, self-illumined. So it's called Tejasa or Swapna. Now, in this dream state, today I dream that I am M. I'm sitting here. Tomorrow, I may wake up from this dream and I may not be M. Tomorrow in my dream, I dream that I am Maheshwarnath Babaji. And I'm happy because there are no followers. Right? So now you see, the problem with dream is it is inconsistent. One day you're something and the next day you're something else. In the waking state, if I am M, I go to sleep. When I wake up, I'm still M, so I'm happy. Right? It continues. The continuity is there in the waking state. In the dream state is very real when it happens, but there is no continuity. Although many times, if you dream that you're a king living in luxury, you wish it continues, but you wake up and you're back to saying, hey, where do I get my breakfast? You don't know that because you're all comfortable people. We know this. When you're a wandering sadhu in the Himalayas, for instance, you don't know where your next meal. Sometimes you wake up early morning so hungry. And you're wondering where to get breakfast. When the master says, go wash and bring some firewood. So, then you know how hunger is so important. Yeah. So anyway, so this dream, therefore, is a state where everything looks real, is real for the time being, but disappears into another reality when you wake up. So it's relative, which means the one who saw the dream or sees the dream and one who was woken up is the same, but the states are different. And because they are relatively real, therefore they cannot be absolutely real. Something is relatively real, it cannot be absolutely real. It's here and then gone. Right. Now we have another interesting state. Deep sleep. Now deep sleep, the word used in the Upanishad is Shushupti. Shushupti is the word used for deep sleep. You don't have to remember. Now, deep sleep is another phenomenon which needs to be looked at. Very interesting to see. What happens in deep sleep? You're neither aware of the outside world. If you're not dreaming, you're not then aware of the inside world too. But you live, you're there. You're there. It's not that you've gone anywhere. But you have no awareness of the outside world, no cognition of the inner world. Both do not exist. But you seem to be still there somewhere, because when you wake up, you're back again full force. Right? So it seems that the brain has gone to sleep for some time. There is no movement, inside or outside. But it's enjoyable, especially when there are no dreams, especially when there are no bad dreams. It's truly enjoyable, this deep, dreamless sleep. It's so blissful that many a time we catch ourselves switching off the alarm 3 times because we don't want to wake up. It's so blissful and nice, right? Also, when we wake up, we say, oh, that was a blissful sleep. Which means what? That there was somebody there, but at that moment it was not aware. And waking up in that state between waking and coming out of deep sleep, I realized suddenly that I'm there. And I enjoyed beautifully in deep sleep. So there is an entity out there. Though at that time the entity is not aware. So, this is deep sleep. Now, so Om is over, we would think. A, U and Ma is over. Om. But do you say Om like this? Om. Or do you say Om? You see that thing? When you ring a bell and it goes on for some time, that's called the Ardhamatra, the half sound. That half sound, the Upanishad gives a name to it. It's called Turiya. So Turiya, I don't know, even the teacher of the Upanishad finds it difficult to define Turiya. If we would say that the entity which was aware of all the three states remains in its pure form and aware that it exists independently of the three states, that would be called Turiya. Or let me put it this way. It's as if in deep sleep, when normally you're not supposed to be aware, you're aware, suppose. In deep sleep, suppose there is a small spark of awareness. And if you have that spark, anytime, you will only see that there is only an ocean of bliss, there is nothing. And when we wake up, we create our own world. There everything is fused and gone. And in deep sleep, normally I am not aware of this, but suppose I wake up in that and say, that is freedom. That's called Turiya. These are the three states. Now, the meaning of the word Kaivalya, which is the word used in the Yoga Sutras, in the Yoga Darshana, for the ultimate experience. You can't call it even experience, but the ultimate, which comes through understanding and going through Samadhi, and the mind becomes absolutely quiet and tranquil. This Kaivalya is derived from the word Kevalam, which means only, just one. So in Turiya, there is only one. It's just pure awareness, not modified into any states of existence. This is Turiya. So therefore, the other day I generally don't listen to many YouTube, including mine. Mm-hmm. But I like this Swamiji from the Ramakrishna Mission in New York, Sarva Priyana. Sometimes I say, well, let's listen to this. So I was listening and I heard him say that somebody said to him, if you understand the Mandukya Upanishad, there is no need to do any more Vedanta, it's over. But it's not so. It's not so. I mean, not easy. So what has that got to do with Kriya? I'll do that in the next session. Okay? Just keep this in mind, that what we are seeking is the seeker. The one who seeks is what we are seeking. It's not an external entity. It's that which is everywhere, all-pervading, and we don't see it or don't know it because we are so divided. We can set aside all divisions of the mind, where there is no meditator or the object meditated upon. This is what is meant by Samadhi. When the object or the idea or that which you meditate upon ceases to exist, there is only the meditator, pure and simple, not trying to find anything, completely settled, where you don't seek anything, but because it is here. Somebody said, it is closer to you than your own neck vein. So this is what we are attempting to do through Kriya. So what is the connection between breathing up and down and seeking that which is so ethereal? This we will discuss. But before we go into that, in the next session, I want to take up a small part of another Upanishad. And then we will move on. In the evening session, we will go on to what is the link between calming the movement of prana in our system and how it is linked to the breath and how that is essential to touch that which is beyond the capacity of an agitated mind to touch. This is where it comes. I told you yesterday, Bhagavad Gita, at the end of each chapter, iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita's Upanishads, so teaching of the Upanishad, Brahma Vidyayam, the knowledge of the Supreme Brahman, Yoga Shastre. So right now, theoretically, we are discussing the Upanishad. And then the next step is Yoga Shastra. When you go to Yoga Shastra, then we'll come to Kriya, right? I want to follow the procedure because it's for thousands of years people have experimented with modes of teaching and they have formulated this, and I have found it always quite foolproof because I think this wisdom, it came to the rishis from somewhere, I don't know from where. Difficult to understand that 2000 years ago they suddenly discovered it. Perhaps somebody gave it to them, we don't know. Perhaps someone much more advanced and intelligent than us or than the Homo sapiens of that time. Perhaps. I can't reconcile to the idea that they thought and found out. Today we can think about it because it's given to us. They've learnt it somewhere. You can say that it got into their minds through intuition, or you can say that they were advanced living beings who taught it to them. We don't know. I'm not talking about the chariot of the gods, please. So this session is over.